Hello and welcome back to the Thought Leader Career Podcast. I'm Sam Bylett. Today I'm joined by Brandon Deskins, partner, vice president of StaffSource. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sam.
It's good to have you here, Brandon. So you spent over 30 years in the Marine Corps, 25 of those in recruiting. What was it like stepping out of that world and into the staffing industry?
Well, so in the Marine Corps, a lot of people would rather go to combat than be on recruiting duty. U.S. Marine Corps is a little unique in that we have a cadre of professional career recruiters who are people who come out for a 3-year tour. They're pretty good at it. They get invited, if you will, to stay and keep that institutional base of knowledge in the organization. I was fortunate to be one of those people. So first 5 years, I was in the infantry, did typical Marine Corps things, went on this recruiting piece, and was good at it, got to stay and become one of those about 300 or so career recruiters. For the next 25 years, it's all I did. Honestly, to step from that environment into a staffing environment, it's the same stuff. It's pipelines, it's funnels, it's talent management, it's all the same things. We just called it different things in the Marine. All the same headaches and stuff you deal with in staffing, they have an equivalent in military recruiting.
So interesting. And are there any kind of values or leadership habits from your time in the Marines that still show up how you run the company today?
Okay, so in that way, the Marine Corps does prepare you very, very well for that. Mission accomplishment is first and foremost everything Marines do. We take care of our people, we take care of our Marines, and we accomplish the mission. That's the be-all, end-all. That same kind of ethos, you take that into a staffing environment, you could have a raging inferno on your hands, okay? Bailing out because they're just not quite as committed as you are, right? I was very fortunate that I joined a company that had great bones. They had really good people in it already and in leadership positions. And we took that and we kind of filled in the middle management pieces, the recruiter pieces, with people who could operate on that same wavelength of mission accomplishment, take care of those around you. So I like to say it's like this. We went from a culture of accountability where we set standards, we set new standards and we executed on those. But the culture of accountability morphed into a culture of dependability where people are just acting, doing, and performing the way they do simply because the person to their left and right of them is doing the same thing. And they expect that out of them.
Yeah, and you described it as a 20-year startup. Can you unpack that a bit? What did that actually look like day to day?
Sure. StaffSource has been around for about 20 years now, and it's gone through several iterations. I'm only part of this story for the last 4.5. But prior to that, it went through a couple iterations, different people doing different things with it. At one point, we were in medical recruiting, got our initial start back 20 years ago in professional services. So it's accounting, finance, HR, those kinds of things. In about 2012, they stood up a tech division. And about 2017, they moved to Nashville. So prior to 2017, StaffSource was just located here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So if you've ever been to Knoxville, Tennessee, there's a couple of things that are unique about it. It's the biggest small town you've ever been in, where everybody knows everybody, okay? Like you hear about the 3 points of connection, the 3 layers between people, right? Well, it's like 2 here, all right? Because everybody does know each other. And the city's unique because it's hemmed in by mountains and water on every side. So it can only grow so much. And with that in mind, the company was growing, was doing very well in this market and looked at it and said, you know what? Nashville's just, 3 hours to the west. It's booming. They say 100 people a day are moving to Nashville. Let's go out there. So in that iteration, we went to Nashville. We stood up a pro division and a tech division. And it was that way till COVID. And really when COVID, this is what makes StaffSource unique, all right, is the leadership of it. And I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the owner of the company. The owner of the company is a guy named John Sharp. And so when COVID kicked off, most staffing companies, well, a lot of them, basically closed overnight. They just kind of faded away into the distance. They let their people go, put them on furlough. Because think about it. If you do contract revenue and people are getting let go and sent home, well, there's no recurring revenue. So what do? Right? You let your people go. The good news story about StaffSource, though, it was a small company, a little less than 20 years old, and it had great cash management, great reserves, right? So basically what we did, and I wasn't part of it then, I wish I could say I was, is that John says, look, if you're a recruiter, we're going to keep you on the payroll. But here's what you're going to do. You're going to keep calling candidates. And when the market opens back up again, you're going to have skill set pipelines to die for because you've got the people already ready to go to work. If you're a business developer, you're going to keep calling your clients because there might not be jobs now, but you know what? Eventually it'll open back up. And when it does, you're going to have the relationships, right? And those two things are priceless in this business, the pipeline and the relationship. You got to have both really from both ends of that sales funnel. So that's what they did. And I'll tell you, when I took over as the director of operations at this company, I saw the books. I was like, my God, the losses for 2020 into 21. But then when everything opened back up, things turned around dramatically, right? Because when their companies had to go out and hire people, they had to build relationships, they had to build skill set pipelines, they had to get job orders. All that stuff was already in place here. And we were plug and play for a lot of people and became their preferred partners. So the gamble of taking care of their people in COVID paid off in the long run. So I bring that all up because that's what sets us apart and makes us unique. So a 20-year startup, yeah, it's gone through several different iterations, but the heart and soul and the bones of this company have always been the same. It's hiring really good people to do really hard things and taking care of them on every level.
Yeah, for sure. And now you're overseeing both sales and the operations. How has your views on leadership evolved?
Okay. So in the Marines, you can get away with a whole lot more on the recruiting field than you can here. Okay. So here's what I mean by that is that here the employee basically has a say. Okay. They can opt out at any time they desire, right? Marine Corps recruiting, that's not a possibility. You can opt out, but if you opt out, the penance for that is your career is going to be over. Okay. Because you basically disobeyed a lawful order, and there's all kinds of bad things that go along with that. And careers are ended because of it. Here, you have to learn how to lead differently. Okay. What I mean to say that is that in the Marine Corps, I could be a hammer a lot more than I can here. Here, I got a coach, I got a mentor. I did all that stuff in the Marine Corps as well. Don't get me wrong. But there came a time when the hammer had to come out. And that's what I meant when I said earlier about going from a culture of accountability to dependability. And we've made that evolution. Okay. So in making that evolution, there's been cost with it. Okay. So I mentioned earlier that we made that transition. So the cost when making that transition was a 47% attrition rate. In 2021, it's what it was. I joined the company in 21 and we had 47% attrition. This year to date, we're at 7% right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And do you look for anything specific when hiring former military talent into staffing roles? And what tends to make them shine in this space?
Okay. Well, you get a certain thing with them all. You get a mission focus. You get a team mentality, team before self. Generally speaking, there's exceptions to every rule. But when you hire a military person, that's generally what you get. What I'm looking for here when I hire somebody who they're willing to hang the uniform up. Okay. They're not trying to live in the past like that. And, you know, they come to work. They recognize that the people they work with are their peers. There's not a rank structure here. Yeah, there's a corporate hierarchy. I got it. I understand all that stuff, right? But I'll tell you what, I spend as much time back in the bullpen as I do in this office because I'm no better than they are. They're no worse than I am. And we're going to learn from each other. So I look for somebody who's willing to learn, who's willing to say, you know, I was an E9, Master Gunnery, Sergeant Major, whatever, for X number of years in the Marine Corps, and I was in charge of all kinds of things, but I still have stuff to learn. And as long as they have that about them, yeah, that's a good hire. You know, ultimately, it comes down to our core values. We have 6 core values at StaffSource. They're character, competency, celebration, community, growth, and grit. Okay, we call it C4G2, right? Like a chemistry formula. So I tell people, I said, you're hired for character. You're also fired for character. We've lost 2 people in the last 18 months. And of those 2, they're both character related, ultimately. You know, they just didn't meet the standard. And, you know, here's the thing is that if you give somebody a pass for some things, there's some offenses you just can't give somebody a pass for. And if you give them a pass, it cheapens everybody else's work.
Yeah, I love that. And StaffSource has been described as boutique and high touch. What does that actually mean in terms of how you work with clients?
Okay. So on the client aspect of it, it is high touch. We call it high touch, high performance. But what I mean by high touch is we actually build relationships. Okay. It's not transactional. We're not a staffing firm that's going to do an ad call in the morning. A business developer is doing an ad call to a company because I saw a posting out on ZipRecruiter or whatnot. And they said, hey, let me send you over some resumes for this, see how it works out, blah, 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 right? They sign an MSA, and then they launch 10 resumes to them, and they say, hey, hope it works out. If you want to interview them, let me know, okay? So what we do on this end of it is that we have really, really good recruiters who do consultative selling, who find out the needs behind the needs of the candidates. We do the same thing on the business developer side. They find out the need behind the need, what the role truly requires, not just what a job description says, what the culture of the company is, what their frontline supervisors are going to be like. And we marry those up. It's like matchmaking, really. We marry those up. And so instead of sending 10 resumes to a client, we're going to send you 3. But the 3 we're going to send you are going to be exquisite skill set fits, good culture fits, great alignment. And then we're going to follow it up with the question of, here's 3. When do you want to start interviewing them? I'll help coordinate it. And that matters. You become a partner in the process instead of just being a vendor. What it looks like is that we have business developers and recruiters sitting in on sendouts with clients, getting direct feedback in the moment, because the way it is that if you're not there watching the interview occur, after the interview, we'll call the candidate and go, hey, how'd it go? And they all say it went great, right? But if you're actually watching it, you see the things, you see the texts, the ticks and the tells and all the stuff that goes unsaid. So we take that. If it's not the right fit, we refocus on what they're really looking for based off those interactions and go to work with it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And do you think the broader staffing industry has become too transactional?
Depends on the role. I would say some are transactional because they have to be transactional. If it's hourly factory workers it's like a revolving door. I hate to say that, but that's just the way it is. And if you were high touch with all that, well, you just run out of time in the day. There's not enough hours, right? So some of it's got to be that way. But in some spaces, especially IT, there's no reason IT can't be high touch.
Yeah, for sure. And touching on kind of the tech section, are there any new tools or tech you're exploring to keep improving performance or client experience?
Okay, so we were beholden to Salesforce for a very long time. We were clients of Salesforce full bore across all venues for a better part of 10 years. Salesforce, as you well know, is very expensive. It's got great capabilities. It does a lot of things. So recognizing that AI can write code for you, okay, that you can do things to shorten the development cycle of softwares and such. Went to work early last year on developing our own CRM. Okay. So how that played out was we just do the recruiters first. So we still have business developers on Salesforce because Salesforce is tied to our QuickBooks and that's how we bill and so forth and so on. So it's just easier to keep it there for now. Right. But all of our recruiters are on a proprietary system and it basically does about 90% of what Salesforce could do for them. And some things it does even better. It can do candidate matching. You put a job description in it and it can drop in your 10 most qualified candidates and give them a percentage of how they rate with that job. We're getting it to where it can post automatically to our platforms, ZipRecruiter, Indeed, LinkedIn, and such. It can pull the jobs down when they close, all those things. So it's been a work in progress to the point where it culminated in basically firing Salesforce for our recruiter staff in April this year. Has it been all perfect? No, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows. Okay. There's been some hiccups along the way and we lead them through that. We let them know that, hey, it's okay to be frustrated with it. It's called innovation frustration for a reason, right? Before you can go fast, you got to go slow. So things did slow down. There was a dip in performance and productivity, but that was in April. And now we're in August and things are about where they were when we switched Salesforce off.
Is that a custom built CRM?
It is. So I was fortunate. I had a recruiter on staff who is just an IT guy. He's just in love with it. He's about as in love with it as anybody I've ever seen. And he builds servers on the weekends and that kind of thing just for fun. Taught himself Python just for fun, SQL just for fun. And then I had another guy who's a computer science. He just graduated with a computer science degree from UT, 4.2 GPA. Brilliant mind. And the two of those guys collaborate on this deal and we have it now.
Yeah. Good to have them guys on board for sure.
It is. It was lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And are there any new industries, roles, or verticals you're personally keeping an eye on?
We're pretty comfortable in our IT space. IT is going to look different, I think. This is from the guy that's only been in the staffing industry for 4.5 years, and before that, 25 years in military recruiting. But I think IT is going to look vastly different 5 years from now by the influence of AI. Okay. I think a lot of the lower level roles, I mean, you can back up to when, what they say at LinkedIn, they're not going to hire any more developers, right? Or Salesforce is not going to hire any more developers for the time being, because they can do the same stuff with AI, right? So some roles are going to go away. Some new roles are going to emerge. And with that in mind, we're going to stay in our wheelhouses there with those, with our IT book, and then our accounting, finance book, HR book, which is our professional division. Stay right where that at. What we do want to expand is in other markets. So we're actively looking at Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is about an hour and a half to the southwest of us. And that would make a nice little triangle here in Tennessee. But beyond that, I've got a footprint in Texas. I have a recruiter who's remote in Texas. I've got a couple of hires I'm looking at, one in Virginia, one in Florida right now. So the prospect of us branching out, and these are all recruiters that have the ability to step into the business developer seat. Once they've learned the business, tech recruiting and such, you could easily make them a business developer. So yeah, we're looking at expanding other markets.
Interesting. And what's your long-term vision for StaffSource?
So we have 5 business developers now. I have 3 here in Knoxville. I have 2 in Nashville. Ideally, I'd like to see us at 8 business developers with weekly contract books of $25K in rev.
Yeah, nice. And if someone was transitioning out of the military and thinking about getting into staffing, what advice would you give them?
Well, if you were stepping out of the military and you've been a recruiter before, a career recruiter especially, I would say don't waste your God-given talents. You've obviously survived a decade or more on recruiting, and to do so is an accomplishment. So don't waste those God-given talents. Step into staffing, be willing to learn, be willing to understand that it's different. It's different, but at the same time, it's exactly the same. So what I mean by that is I have a business developer that sat in my office like last year sometime. And so this lady comes to me. We hired her on the back of COVID. She sold ad space for the CBS affiliate here in Knoxville for like 20 years. So she knew everybody in Knoxville. She'd never done staffing before, never done tech, right? But she was smart and she can learn it, and that's okay. So we hire her, and she takes off to the races, and she's doing really well. But she gets frustrated. She sits in my office one day and goes, "Why is this so hard?" And I say, "Here's why it's so hard, Kristen. It's hard because everyone has a say. Everyone has a say. The candidate has a say. The client has a say. People you don't even know are in the equation, they have a say in whether a deal succeeds or not. And that it's not just spouses. You got some candidates that have to go check with mom and dad, for God's sakes, right? That same rule applies when you come here from military recruiting. The thing about military recruiting makes it so hard is that everyone has a say, but the big difference between that and here is that here I might have a 2-week gap between I get a close and that person actually starts to work, right? In the military, I'm recruiting a guy today with the intention of sending him to recruit training a year from now. So he's going to buy my product. I'm going to take my product and sell it to his mom and dad, have everybody sign everything. And then we're going to put it up on a shelf and let it sit for a year. And then we're going to pull it off the shelf and expect him to execute on it. So you talk about service after the sale and being able to build a relationship. That's how you do it. So those God-given talents that a military recruiter learns doing that, it doesn't matter what branch, okay? They all have to go through the same process. Those talents, they are worth a lot of money on this side of the fence.
That's a long sales cycle.
It is.
That's for sure. And and for our audience, how can they find out a bit more about StaffSource and connect with yourself?
Sure. So you can get me via email at bdeskins@staffsource.com. You can also look us up on the web at staffsource.com. We got a really snazzy new website we put in place about a year and a half ago. It's just beautiful. Our old one was kind of janky, so we fixed that up.
Great stuff, Brandon. Yeah, I really appreciate you jumping on today. It's been a fascinating conversation, and let's keep in touch, and I'll hopefully speak to you soon.
Sounds good, Sam. Take care.
Cheers, Brandon.